Here with Michelle Fliegauf with International Yoga Retreats. She is the founder of the company, and she is here to help us with creating retreats, with the pros and the cons of working with different retreat centers, etc. So Michelle, why don't you tell us a little bit about your background just in the yoga world and in the retreat world?
Sure. Thank you so much, Laura, for having me here. It's fun to talk about retreats, my favorite subject. I started international yoga about 10 years ago now, and I come from a background of adventure travel personally, and also managing an adventure travel company for 4 years. And then I managed a yoga studio for 4 years. And at a certain point, it became this perfect synergy for me to blend my two loves of yoga and travel. So I started international yoga a decade ago when, I was just thinking about this the other day, when really it wasn't cool to make for yoga to be profitable in any way, when it was sort of taboo to have yoga as a business. Obviously we've come a long way in the last decade on that. But there weren't really many retreats when we started, but there are quite a few nowadays for sure. So.
Wow. Is that what made you want to actually create a retreat business? It's because it was something that wasn't offered and you saw like or it sounds like you also married your your two interests or your two backgrounds of travel and managing a yoga studio.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And so it's, when I was a girl, we would go every year to Europe to visit my family where all my family lives. I'm the first American in the family. And as a young child, I just got the travel bug very early on, just very curious about other ways of doing things. Recognizing that we're not the center of the universe here in the United States. There's other ways of life that are equally interesting and valid. And I just learned so much about the globe and about myself through traveling. And then when I fell in love with yoga, it was just sort of it just was this perfect marriage of, getting together like-minded people to go explore the globe, interact with other people. The meaning for me in the work that I do is really about having people interact and understand other cultures. So we just had a group last week in Cuba, and I was just hearing stories about what a transformative trip it was, and to learn about this culture that's been off limits to us for so long. So those kinds of things are really what motivated me. And then of course, having the yoga as the foundation to really help integrate all that we're seeing and bring people, like-minded people together. So that was really the kind of the personal impetus, was my own love of travel that started at a young age that I never really stopped doing. It's been kind of where I've always focused my free time and funds has been on travel. And I just saw a little niche there where I knew that teachers that might be great teachers, but they might not have the interest or the time or the business acumen to create these retreats. There are many, many details that go into these retreats. And so I thought it would be helpful to provide that service to senior teachers, or, to help assist with all the many details so that they can focus on teaching and that we take care of the rest. And so we work with a lot of teachers that have done their own retreats and they know what goes into it. And they say, okay, we've done it. We know what it takes. We'd love to have help with all the admin and managerial and time, because a successful retreat can take a couple hundred hours really to produce, from start to finish. So.
Right. So if there was a teacher who's never done a retreat on their own, or maybe they've done a couple of retreats, but they're still struggling, what's some of the recommendations that you would suggest to someone, a teacher who wants to have a retreat? What would you suggest? How would they get started?
To get started, yes. Well, retreats are a wonderful thing to do to round out, I think, what a teacher or a studio is offering, in addition to workshops, teacher trainings. Obviously, there's a lot of retreats out there. To sort of have your foot in that market is a wonderful thing. It really can, I think your students return home even more dedicated to their practice with you. Lifelong bonds are formed, and the teacher-student relationship is strengthened on those trips. So in terms of the best way to get started, because I do think they're so valuable to do, is you really want to make sure that you are starting with a very solid foundation. You need a dedicated following. You need to have an existing marketing arm, regular newsletters, social media, things like that, and a dedicated student base, regular classes that are quite full. They're not easy to fill. Some retreats, we put it out there and we say, oh, we're going to, Mexico in December with one teacher, and it fills up and sells out. And then 6 months later with that same teacher, we're going to Peru. And for some reason, the date or the price or the location doesn't work. And then that trip doesn't do as well as we expected. So, in order to set yourself up for success, and because a lot of these properties require pretty hefty non-refundable deposits, you want to make sure that you've got this solid foundation and that people are going to be willing to travel with you, you know, abroad. So that I would just, and it can take a while to get there. And I know I get approached by a lot of younger students, a lot younger teachers that want to go and teach in various locations. And it's a very, you know, appealing thing to do. But generally, you know, it does take a while to build up to that point of being able to garner that interest and have a successful attendance number.
Yeah, definitely. It seems like I know what I've experienced here. When I first started doing retreats, it was on my own. And of course, now I use international yoga, which I love. And of course, the first one I think one of the first ones I tried putting together, was Fiji on the other side of the planet. And then South Africa on the other side of the planet. And I feel like, and maybe, you know, let's just go for the hardest destinations. Like, let's just, you know, and, but I feel like for teachers, and you might agree on this, is starting like local, like starting with the weekend retreats. And even now, you know, even though I do my international work with you, it's really nice. It seems like those are easier to fill because there's less commitment.
Yes.
And people actually start building a relationship with you. Would you agree with that?
I agree. Yeah, I think it's a great place to start. I've done that too in the beginning of my retreat career, going, yeah, let's go to India. Let's jump into the deep end right away. And no, I learned also the hard way with many teachers that I think it's really wise to really start closer to home. You know, remove those barriers of entry, no big flights, no visas, vaccinations needed. You can just pop away for the weekend. Because truthfully, a lot of people, we all work so hard in the US, we don't have a lot of time away. So being able to, for people to just jump away with you for, you know, 2 or 3 nights can be a great place to start. Many international retreats that I see with teachers are built on the foundation that was laid through domestic retreats and local retreats. And, you know, all San Francisco, New York, Los Angeles, and I'm sure many big cities in America have great little spots an hour or two outside of the city to where people can get away and have a bit of that, you know, taste of unplugging, renewing, and then, you know, back home with a, you know, with a short drive. So I think that's a great place to start. And all the skills that that you need to run and create and fill a local retreat are applicable to an international retreat. Of course, there's other variables once you go international, a little more complicated, more moving parts, but definitely you'll get a great learning experience through doing the domestic first and then venturing out to the international.
And so for a lot of these places, well, I've got 2 questions I'm trying to say at the same time. So what are some of the recommendations that you would have? Like if you're going to create a retreat, I mean, obviously you pick a spot, and then any, like, what are some of the, what am I trying to say? Like the office work or the work, like the bookkeeping work, how do you actually develop the retreat itself? You probably have to find a place, and how far in advance would you actually want to book a place? And then what are some of like the essential things that teachers would need to do as far as starting to build that retreat in order to offer that retreat?
Yes. Good question. We plan over a year in advance. And I know it seems so far, but those teachers that are doing teacher trainings and workshops, I think we are all accustomed to working a year or 2 in advance, right, with your trainings and things that you do. So as far out as you can, because it takes a while to put it together. I mean, there are, you know, 1,000 places to stay in Tuscany. There's 1,000 places to stay in Bali, but to find the property with availability of the, you know, level of service that you need with the right pricing, proximity to the airport, cultural excursions, quality of food, the right terms and contract for you, all of the great management is really important, the ownership of the property. So finding all of those is actually a needle in a haystack. We spend a lot of time researching. Whenever we go to new locations, it's quite a bit of work to find the right partners overseas. And you absolutely have to find those right partners, because you've got your students are coming. This is their maybe 1 week off a year. They've worked hard all year for the funds that are going to go toward this retreat. And so when they fly, you know, to wherever they're going, or even if you're doing a local retreat, it has to be of a certain standard. It has to fulfill what they're looking for. Because when you take people places that you've not been to, or you haven't done the proper research, it's very stressful when things start to go awry and they don't like their room, or the management isn't upholding its side of the deal, or people are sick, or whatever it is. Those things, you know, when things go smoothly, it's great. But when you're traveling internationally in particular and things start to go, you know, off course, it can snowball pretty quickly. So for me, I really recommend doing as much homework as you can. First of all, you want to know your marketplace. What time of year does everyone want to travel? If you're on the East Coast, do people want to get away, when it's winter time? Here, on the West Coast, it's a little bit more, our weather doesn't dictate as much of when people want to travel, but it might be around, avoiding school holidays or going during school holidays if you have a large family, if you've got a lot of moms in your classes, so knowing your market when they want to travel, knowing your student base. Are they younger teacher training students that are looking to really deepen their practice and do a lot of yoga, but are a little bit more budget conscious? Are they, again, these are generalizations, but are they a little bit older and more well-heeled and they really want comfort, so you need to go for a 5-star? So just knowing, oftentimes the answer is it's a mix of both. And some properties will do a great job of accommodating. So some properties we work with will have like a dorm style facility for those that need a lower price point, so it's accessible to them. And then that same property will have, in a single room with ocean views, and will accommodate kind of that whole range. So that's an ideal scenario when you can find a property like that. So looking for a property that is experienced. A lot of the really experienced ones that are popular do book out, a year or two in advance. So that's another reason for planning in advance. If you can't get down there yourself, if there's any way that you can go and visit the property, I highly recommend that. And a lot of properties will give you either a comp, they'll give you a free room to come and stay for a couple of nights, or they'll give you a discount. So all you're in it really is your airfare and your time. But if you can go down there, experience it for yourself, make sure that it feels like a good fit for you. Take some photos of yourself while you're down there so you can use that for promotion. That kind of thing is so helpful, because it's really hard for teachers to stand in front of class and say, hey guys, come with me to this place, if you've never been there. But if you've been there and you love it in your heart, that really is what comes across. So doing as much due diligence research really will pay off. And if you can't get there personally, then you can also ask for references. Ask the property to provide you names of other teachers that have brought groups down there, so you can email them and ask them from a teaching perspective, how did that work? But it'll also just give you a better feeling for the rooms, how the rooms are set up, what's the yoga space like, how's the food, what are the excursions? So really take your time to do the research and go with one that's reputable. Yes.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. It seems like it's nice if you have the opportunity to visit the retreat location, so you get a personal vibe. There's no surprises. It's not like you're all being surprised at the same time, which is really nice. And I was even thinking, for my upcoming retreat with International Yoga, like almost making some of the layovers or whatever else, maybe at another retreat location that I would actually want to go to. So that way it's like, I'm going to be over in this area. I'm actually really interested in having a retreat at this place. So while I'm over there, I might go check on another property. Yeah. You already have the pictures, you already have everything. You've already seen, is this a fit? And then, and then come back and you already have the information. You already feel comfortable. You can already say, yeah, this is going to be a great fit for my students, or like, oh, maybe it's not really the best fit. Maybe this other location or something closer. Yeah.
That's a good investment. It is. It's a little bit costly, but you can also build that back into the trip price when you actually price out the trip and kind of pay yourself back for that. But better to get there and realize, oh, this isn't a good fit when it's just you, than when you've got 20 people there. Yes.
Definitely. Yeah, no, I definitely recommend that. Definitely. I've been in both situations, and it's nice. Or even even if it's a place, I feel like if you haven't been there, if there's some reason why you can't get there, I think it's really nice also if the teacher arrives like a couple days early, just to at least get familiar with the property, so you're not all walking into the front door at the same time.
Yes.
So yeah, which is nice. And then what about, do you have any recommendations for marketing, like how to market retreats, or what do you think are the best ways?
Yes. Well, you are my marketing guru, Laura. You're such a great example of how to market, and I learn from you all the time. For me, it's not my first natural inclination. So I'm more of an operations girl. So it's been a learning curve for me too on the marketing. I know it's hard for all of us that are, we've got, whether you're a yoga teacher or you're in the management in the industry, you've got certain skill set, and then all of a sudden we all also have to have the skill set of being, great social media marketers and things like that. So I think for some people it comes naturally, for others not so much. I'm in the latter category. So, but what I see works, and what I've known over the last decade, what I see works is really the most effective number one tool is the simple personal one-on-one outreach from teacher to student. That is time and again the most galvanizing and inspiring a method that I see what results in people registering and signing up is when a teacher says, hey, Joe, hey, Sally, I'm going to Bali. I'd love to have you come with us, or we're going to Peru. It's just that connection, because I think for many people, understandably, it's a very big leap to travel internationally. Some have not done it before. So when they know they've got the support and the interest from their teacher to go, I think it just gives them that extra confidence. So starting with your personal relationship with the student, I've worked with teachers that have, huge followings that doesn't necessarily translate into a packed retreat. I've worked with teachers that are not well known at all, but they've got a very tight connection with their student base, and that translates into a pretty successful retreat, because we all know teachers that we might love to study with, but we might not necessarily want to hang out with them 24/7 for a week too, so it's really that personal connection, because even with all the other additional marketing support you can do out into the greater population, you really want to mind your database of course students is the heart of your attendees. They're going to come because they know and love you. Now you might get a few people that say, going to Maui or Greece at this time of year, that fits with, my schedule, and this teacher looks good and I'm coming. We always get those people, and that's wonderful. But in our experience, the heart of the attendees come from a teacher's dedicated following. So it's really, talking it up in class, having informational sessions after class, if you can, at a local cafe or at the studio. Of course, regular social media posts, dedicated newsletters, following up with people consistently. So if someone expresses interest, then you really got to put your business hat on and get an Excel spreadsheet and log all the contacts and kind of note when you last talked to them and level of interest, and just staying in touch with people, providing all the information they need to make it easy for them to join. So yeah, the marketing is all social media, newsletters, informational sessions, then the one-on-one invites.
Right.
And of course, flyers are also important too.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Flyers are, I think, are a big key, especially with flyers. I tend to always have them at the end of my class. And I mentioned it at the end of all of my classes. I put flyers out in all the studios. But as you were saying, that's one way, just to visually people to actually see what the retreat is all about. But I like what you said about with the one-on-one, with having connections, saying, hey, Bobby, hey, Sally, I'm having this retreat. I would love for you to come. And I that's actually been done to me. And I didn't even think about going on the retreat. I was like, oh, she really wants me to come on this retreat. Oh, well, maybe I'll actually try to make that happen. So, and it's I do think that's really good. And one of the things I like that International Yoga offers is, as you said, the information sessions, which is nice for people actually to get together with the teacher, just setting those up so students who are interested can come and ask questions. I think that's a really nice thing to offer as well. Yeah. So I think that's great. Yay. And then,
I also, we just redid our website last year to do a much better presentation of the photos, because all these destinations you're going to be going to are breathtaking. So, really maximize the use of that. When my first website, which now when I look at it, that feeling, it looks so dated, and we've got these little photos, and now our new website is all about showcasing the beauty of the destinations, which they're all breathtaking. And then of course the teacher, that's obviously the two main points that are going to get people interested.
And actually, when a teacher is actually on a retreat, what are some recommendations that you think helps make a retreat go smoothly that a teacher can do?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think some people that have not led retreats before are a little bit shocked about how much work it is. You're not just teaching class once or twice a day. You're holding the space, and you can speak to this, so well, Laura. You're holding the space for the students. You're there breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them. So you're kind of on the whole time without a lot of space for yourself, because things will come up. As much planning as you do in advance, there's going to be things that are going to come up that are unexpected. You're going to have to troubleshoot, put out fires, and you're just so you're running the retreat, the yoga itself. You're holding the space for the people, and then you're also managing the logistics of it all. So it's full on. So like you said, coming in a couple of days early is great, so you can familiarize yourself with the property, rest up from your travels, be adapted to the time change before everyone else arrives and you dive in, and then add some time at the end of the trip to actually have a little vacation and unplug. You're going to want to have some time to unwind. And since you're all the way wherever you are, you might as well take advantage of that. Having an assistant come along is a great way to do it. Offering a deep discount to someone to come, or giving them a comp, covering their way. Especially if you have a larger group, having someone there to help is hugely helpful, so that you can focus on the teaching portion, and they can do, if someone's got an issue with their room, or they lost their bags, or they're not feeling well, then the assistant can help that. Because what I see, and what I'm always so impressed by the teachers that we have the luck to work with, are teachers that have been teaching for a long time, and who have led, many trips and trainings and domestic retreats and workshops and things. So it's a level that they bring in terms of just helping also people manage what they're dealing with. So when you're on a retreat, you might be at the beach in Maui or Nicaragua and hanging out, doing yoga twice a day. You're going to be impacted. You're going to be moving through stuff emotionally. And that's the whole point of a retreat, right? Is to kind of dig deep. And so things are going to come out. And the teacher, I see every time, teachers come with the wisdom and knowledge that you have to help people process things emotionally. And then when you add a foreign culture on top of it, like a place like India, where your buttons are going to be pushed because you're seeing things you've never seen before, and you're uncomfortable at times, that adds, it's a whole nother sort of level on top of an already transformative experience. So for that's for the teacher to not just teach the class, but also help people navigate that emotionally, is a huge piece too. So yeah, so get the support that you need before you go, and just be prepared to work hard. And another thing that's going to make your life easier on that retreat and ensure the success of the retreat for you and the student, is to prepare people as much as you can. So when you're working with International Yoga, we're there each step of the way to prepare people. We provide detailed documentation. We're there to answer every question. We want people to have as much as possible a clear understanding of what to expect. You never want to say it's a luxury if it's not luxury. You never want to say, I like a downplay. I say, it's going to be simple. I want people to get there and go, oh my God, it's better than I expected. The last thing you want to do is for people to arrive and expect, one level of amenities and things, and it's not that at all. That sets the tone for the rest of the week to be quite disjointed and uncomfortable. So I think if people, and even when you convey to people in writing and verbally what the experience is going to be, you're not going to know until you're there. But do your best to be really accurate in what people are getting. What kind of bedding is it? What kind of food is it going to be? How active are you going to be? What amenities are there, so that when they're there, that's going to help you the whole week, and allow you to enjoy it, but also for them to get the most out of the experience. So, yes.
Yeah, it's interesting. Some things you bring up, and one of the things that I tend to find really helpful, what I've noticed is that it is one of the main jobs of the teacher is, one, creating community, making sure everyone is okay, making sure everyone's having a good time, no one's being left out. And I've talked with, I know some people, they leave retreats in various ways, but I do feel like it is clocking in, and you don't clock out until the retreat is done. And even from students who have gone on a variety of retreats, they said, oh yeah, my teacher only shows up, just to teach, and then that's it. But I feel like one of the main reasons why they come on the retreat is actually to build a relationship with their teacher. And, at the beginning, at first, I would spend a lot of time, and I still do. And at one point in time, I was like, no, you need to step away some, or just show up at these times. And for me, that didn't really work. And I don't think it really worked for anyone. So I'm a huge advocate for being with your students, pretty much from the time you wake up till the time you go to sleep, until you're showering or whatever else. And you might go ahead and, I usually tell people I'm going to be here, but there might be an hour in the day where I'm not here to take care of logistics and stuff. But if you can, feel free to reach out to me. And I know for myself, I know teachers do different things, but I actually tend to give them all my cell phone number, or if you're someplace else, or WhatsApp. So if they do have a question, if it's something having to do with the hotel, they can contact the hotel. But if something related to an activity or whatever else, that they feel free to actually communicate with me and contact with me. And it's actually been really great, because sometimes if you're in a big group or people get lost, it's nice to be able to quickly text someone and say, hey, we're all over here. We're all over here. So again, that there's that sense of community. I've noticed that when you do foster that sense of community and positivity, instead of getting into a negative, sometimes feel that there might be like a negative, so we'll say something negative, and then it spurs off. And then the whole thing, people get this whole negative mindset of what's going on. It's really important to nip that really quickly, take care of it, flip it around, turn it into something positive. So everyone's experience of the retreat is something that's very positive. And I feel like that's one of the things that actually brings people back to come back to your retreats. I had a positive experience. I made new friends. You know, my teacher, this was great. They're actually my friend and my teacher. And I find that to be really important.
Yes, 100%. I agree with that so much because, I mean, part of the beauty of travel is that it is going to push your buttons. It is going to make you uncomfortable. It's going to take you out of your comfort zone. You know, we're used to kind of, you know, controlling things quite closely here in our everyday lives. And when you travel, by definition, you're giving up that control. And for some people, they can roll with it, and others will have a harder time. And some might, you know, there might be a few that are feeling a little bit negative about this or that. And I agree that as soon as you can, you know, you got to keep a close eye on how people are doing, address it right away before it starts to sort of filter out and start skewing everyone else to look in a negative way, and make it into, this is yoga, this is learning, this is transformation, this is, you know, all of the, how well you can weave. I see a lot of teachers will weave that into the class. Like, okay, yesterday was a bit challenging. We were in the market and one of you got lost, but here, and weave it into the learning. Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. And then what would you say, like the pros and cons of doing a retreat on your own versus through a company like International Yoga?
Like International Yoga. Well, one is experience. And now I see there are many, you know, retreat companies out there. Just make sure that they have a lot of experience at what they do. You know, one of the things that I'm most proud of and that gives me the most meaning is that I've been working with the same teams in places like India and Bali for over a decade. Many teachers I've been working with that you'll see on International Yoga's roster for over a decade. So we learn together, and I've learned many things the hard way. And so I obviously, every time we do a trip, we're incorporating everything we've learned to make each and every trip better. And so that is the benefit experience of longstanding relationships, of, you know, incorporating hard won lessons into making sure that the trip is a success at all levels. I would say doing it on your own. Like if you have the time and you have the interest and you like, you know, business and finance and all that, then it can be great, and it can be really fun and meaningful. Obviously you can put in, you know, whatever your earnings are going to be for yourself. It's just one of you with the earnings. When you're working with an organization like ours or others, or through a studio, then of course you've got more people to split the pie with. But you also have to know about the risk that you're taking on. That's one thing I think people don't know when they're doing these retreats themselves. I see a lot of times they don't price it right. I see a lot of people that lose money. So when you're pricing your retreats, make sure you account for all your costs and be very conservative. Say, I hope to get, 15, 20 people, but what happens if I only get 8? What am I going to do? Make sure that your airfare and your earnings and your credit card fees and liability insurance is something that's really important. If something goes wrong, you want to make sure that you're covered. So working with an organization like mine, we have a pretty extensive liability insurance policy. That's a pretty important thing to think about. Also making sure that you read the contracts, and you can get yourself in trouble too if you don't understand the terms that you're agreeing to. When you work with an organization like International Yoga, we also have access to better rates at retreat centers because of the volume of business we're bringing. So, there's definitely pros and cons to each. Like I said, we have a lot of teachers that have done their own, that come to us and they know, I'd rather spend my hours teaching privates or teaching another class or focusing on my marketing of myself, rather than answering people's questions about what to pack and how do I fly there and can you accommodate my dietary requirement, and here are my flights, and I want this room, and do you take payment plans, and what's travel insurance, and all the things that we do. So, I think partnering with someone is a good way to go. Unless you've got you really like the business side and numbers and money, and that's exciting for you, then I think then you can be well suited to do it. But yeah. I think partnering, it's also nice, to have someone to ask questions to make decisions together with, to kind of have someone that you can shoot the breeze with and have a sounding board on things as they come up. I like to work in partnership. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that. And I like what you said also about contracts, because even if you do it on your own, luckily a really good friend of mine is a lawyer, and she's like, you need a contract. And she just totally, thank God she wrote up a contract for me to give to the people who are coming on the trip, just with different things that I think is good to have a contract. with making sure you have with the students and also the other people you may be working with as far as like hotels, and just making sure everything's on a piece of paper. And I'm glad she told me that. And there was one instance where I did not do that for a trip that was going to happen. It didn't happen, but there was not even a contract written. And it wasn't a good situation. It would have been much better if a contract was written, so everyone's clear. It's on a piece of paper, and even things like I loved when I read through a contract. Even stuff like if the rain happens to be too heavy that night, we're not in control of that, or whatever else. Like
Yes.
it was really good, because some people I didn't know the forecast was going to be like this,
Yep.
And so, we don't have there's certain things we just don't have control over. So.
Yes.
So that was definitely in the contract. And then, I know I've done both right now. I'm definitely in a place where I absolutely love that you are helping me with the administrative stuff, so I can focus on telling people about it and focus on all my projects and whatever else. And I do feel like, though, with a lot of retreat companies, if you want to partner up with someone, with the company, it seems like it can be, it's not, for some, it's not that easy. It's like, as you're saying, you need to have experience. You need to have a following probably before someone's going to hire you to host one of the retreats. So can you actually talk about what you look for in a teacher to say, okay, I'm going to actually work with this person, or like, oh, this might be a little risky. So what are some things you look at?
In the beginning, I would say yes to everybody, and I got myself into some, some difficult places. Again, with these contracts. So you can imagine, from the point of view of a retreat center or a hotel, they're not going to block half of their property for you, and then you call them a week prior and say, oh, I can't make it, right? So for them, it's risky. So they are asking for some funds up front. So I think that, for me now, we really are working with teachers that have experience running retreats, that have a proven track record of bringing in a certain number of people, and that they want to take their retreats to the next level. So, for me, it's having a strong social media following. It's having the newsletter in place. It's having experience run domestic retreats, having experience running teacher trainings, workshops, having close relationship with their students. And the other thing that's really important to me too, and that was, again, kind of some difficult learnings for me, was working with some teachers that, outside of class, it was a challenging experience to work with them on a business level. So I'm looking for people that I can work with, that I can talk about when things get difficult, that the teacher and I can sit down and say, hey, that was really hard for me. This didn't work, that didn't work. I mean, that's why I've got this longevity with the properties and teachers. I'm not looking for just a one-off trip with the teacher. I want to grow together, because like I said, we do one location one year and another location another year, where we learn together. And so I was just talking to a teacher today, and I said, thank you so much for sticking by me, and she said the same thing. It's been a decade. We've had wins, we've had losses, but overall the net is, every year we're getting better and better together. For me, that's more important than anything, is having the ability to talk about things when things get rough, because they will occasionally, so that's what I want out of the teachers I work with. And I want to have fun, this business, no one's in the travel and yoga business to become millionaires. You do it because you love what you do. You believe in it. And I do believe very much so in the transformative power of yoga and travel. And I see it all the time. People come back and say, thank you. My life is different now. And that's what it's all about. So I'm looking to partner with people that are in that same vein.
Right. No, that's great. I just quickly changed locations. I realized I was running out of juice, so anyway, power plugs, this and that. So we have a slightly different atmosphere, or a slightly different background. But no, that's actually very helpful. Like, I think with people, with teachers, knowing that a lot of times they can't just go in, and for most companies like yourself, they don't just instantly hire teachers, because they are taking a risk by doing that. But it is having experience. It is, doing things that are local, making sure you have a following, making sure you're doing the newsletters and social media, so that it's a guarantee. Because it actually, as you're saying, like, I know when I work with you, we put down a deposit, and it's risky for both the company and the teacher to put down a deposit, and you're like, you have to make sure it works in order for it to go through. So it is a big risk for a company. To hire a teacher, making sure that they're actually going to hopefully, fill the retreat.
Yeah, and in this market where there are so many retreats these days, right? So it's getting increasingly busy. So another thing I recommend too is before you dive into a contract with a retreat center is just do a little, and you've done a great job at this, Laura, is just do a little informal poll with your students to say, hey, I'm thinking about going to Guatemala, or I'm thinking about going to Turkey. You know, what do you guys think? And so it's just helpful to kind of take the temperature of your students and to help you before you plunk down the deposit, to know that there's a feeling of buzz, there's a little bit of interest in this destination at this time of year. That's worked well for us, right? So
yeah, no, that's actually really worked well for me. Even when the I remember you were saying like Greece was a really tough location, but then once I polled my students, they're like, oh, Greece sounds really great, and that retreat did really well, and it's just seeing, instead of just like, oh, I actually want to go travel to this place, it sounds really cool. It's like, okay, but make sure you're going to have people who are going to go with you.
yeah,
like it sounds really cool to them too, so.
yeah.
Yeah, that's wonderful. So is there any other tidbits, like how that you can think of?
I think, just be careful, price it right, get your insurance, work with a reputable property, communicate everything clearly to your students in writing. You really got to, dot your I's and cross your T's in this industry. Make sure that your terms and conditions with the students are clear. When is their deposit due? When is it non-refundable by? Just be very, very clear. You'll be so happy that if anyone has any questions, you've got something to show in writing. Here's where I showed you, on this. People sometimes don't read, so it's worth it to send people a number of times, same information, and just provide, top level customer service. And, we kind of mama bear our people that travel with us. I want to make sure everyone's safe and has a great time. So, yeah. And I'm here, if people ever want to, I would give talks at the Yoga Journal conferences on this exact subject, about how to create a successful yoga retreat for you and your students. And it's fun for me to talk about it. So if anyone wants just to call me and, ask a question here or there, want a little direction, I'm thinking about going to this property, what do you think? I'm happy to spend a little time and just help you, get you on the right track. So feel free to reach out.
And so how can people find out about you? What is the best way?
Best way is go to internationalyoga.com. You can send an email, to info@internationalyoga.com. And just ask for me, Michelle, and I'll be happy to provide any guidance if you need it.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Michelle.
Thanks,
I appreciate it. I love it. I have to say, I love working with International Yoga. It's been a blessing, and it's always a guarantee. Like I know it's going to be good. It's going to be smooth, and that's actually one of the nicest things for teachers is just knowing like, okay, everything's going to be. It's a good location. It's legit. So I do definitely think that's one of the great things about working with you. So
thank you, Laura. It's such a pleasure working with you. I feel so honored, and I have a fun time working with you, and you're so good at what you do. And thank you so much for working with us.
Oh, well, thank you so much. So so check out internationalyoga.com to find out more
about Laura's retreat. We've got a retreat coming up to Bali, right?
So, yeah, retreat coming up to Bali. I don't know when you'll be viewing this, but if you're viewing this and it's before April 21st through 28th, 2018, that will be in Bali. And then you'll see, again, if you just happen to be in Singapore, or get the magazine, Michelle will have an article in there in August of 2017 about retreats, and then I will have one in there in October about Michelle's more about like kind of some of the information we've talked about, probably going in depth about running retreats, and I'll be talking about more about once you're there, like actually hosting them, some feedback and just ways to make sure it goes smoothly. Okay.
Great.
All right. Well, thank you all so much. All right.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.